Okay, great.
If you're all still coherent.
Right, I was just going to say, my goodness gracious. Or maybe on Wednesday morning, depending on the circumstances. We've had those when we've gone past the midnight hour. And obviously, our great help, guidance, Roland Geiger, our budget director. So with that, we'll start, and we start with a shorter agenda today, which I think we all deserve after working so hard for the first 3+ months of the calendar year. And we welcome Public Works, who is with us today to talk about a requested additional appropriation for senior center renovations. And it's PW4 Public Works for $338,000. So we welcome our Public Works Commissioner, Amy Siebert, and Luigi Romero.
Romano.
Romano.
Romano, yes.
Sorry, Romano, who is our building and construction person with us today. So we thank you both.
Thank you. So we're here today to ask for the acceptance of a donation of $338,000 from the Friends of the Greenwich Senior Center to the current accounts in order to proceed with the current projected phase of the project.
And
The-
you're also asking for an additional appropriation, correct? So that you have the underlying appropriation to move forward with the project.
Yes, so this appropriation is the acceptance of a donation from the Friends of the Civic Center.
Or maybe doing two things. Are we doing two things? Laura?
Well, I think the budget resolutions anticipates the donation, so I don't think we need, I mean, the RTM would accept a gift, but I think it's already covered in the resolution, so I think all we're really doing is
the
appropriating the
appropriation.
gift.
Okay. So yeah, so we, there was 1.15 million already appropriated for the project. Of that, 150 has already been spent as part of this phase. That was to do the demolition and the electrical upgrade for this space in order to provide the necessary electrical for the new kitchen and dining area. We did the demo ahead of time in order to flush out some costs and try to have some savings. And going forward, we received a bid for low bid of 1.11 million, leaving us a shortfall of 115,000. And then to reestablish a 20% contingency, which is typical for a historic building, we are seeking the 338 additional appropriation.
Well, the acceptance of the gift.
Acceptance of the gift.
So we had, a short memo, and we thank you for that. So did you have more than one bid for this project? And are you, can you share that with us? And can you
Sure.
share with us who the contractor is? Have you had experience with this contractor before? And just any additional information to give us a little comfort here as we appropriate the money.
Sure, we have worked with this contractor before. I don't know that I'm allowed to say who the contractor is specifically, as nothing's been awarded yet.
It was a public bid, so you
It
can
was?
tell them who
Okay,
it is.
thank you. Yeah, so it was Werner Construction. They're a local company based out of Coscob. Done a lot of work with them in the past. They were the only bidder. We had a mandatory pre-bid, which 12 contractors showed up to. So those 12 were allowed to bid on the project. Werner was the only one who received a actual bid. I've reached out to 2 of the other contractors who were at the pre-bid to discuss and see what was going on, what was any hesitations or anything. They both shared with me that they didn't really have any hesitations. They were interested in the project. The reason one did not bid was because we had a 30% self-performing clause in which we require the contractor to perform 30% of the work by themselves in-house so that they have some skin in the game and are committed to the project. Wilson was that contractor. They're currently doing the eastern job. They did not want to do the 30% in-house. They don't have the in-house staff to meet those needs, so they decided not to bid on that. And then another contractor doing some work for the town currently, they looked at the project, were interested in the project, but did not have the time to give it its need from their estimation point of view. and they didn't want to submit a bid that they weren't confident with. So, and then they both also stated that the distance from their locations and rising fuel costs and et cetera, typical supply shortages complicated the process, especially with the 120-day hold, to ensure we had time to flush through the system.
So, can you just give us a time frame of when you expect to start this project, at least with what you know today? And then when you would expect to complete the project so that the senior center could be back in and use this space?
Sure. Yeah, that's the general push for this. A lot of excitement behind this project, looking to get it move forward. The Werner is planning on starting, I think, just a week or two after the award is made. And then I think we have an estimated completion time around January of '23.
Thank you. January 23. Wow, that's
Yes.
great.
Yeah, hopeful.
Super.
Yeah, we've done a little bit of work ahead of time, like I said, with the demolition and the electrical, so that cut some of the work out there, and we're hoping to push the time frame to get it done quickly.
Thank you. So Laura, do you have any questions?
Yes, I just want, for the record, I had emailed a question about the state grant, and maybe just to get it on the public record, Roland, maybe you could share what you learned about the $300,000 state grant.
Yeah, the $300,000 state grant is not part of this $338,000 gift from the Friends. That is in addition to this gift, and that is earmarked for a future phase of this project. We haven't received it yet.
You haven't received the grant, the funds for the grant yet? Did you get all the information you need? Yes. Leslie?
I think you probably answered this question already, but I thought I'd ask for the record too. You did receive only one bid. You have some rationales from the other two of the other firms that came to your pre-bid process. But do you think that you would get different pricing for this if you went out to market again? Like I said, think I know the answer to that, but I think we should ask the question. And as part of that, the total budget for this project, you said, was 1.1 that was approved. Was the electrical upgrade estimated as part of that bid, that this bid was higher than you thought the phase would cost? Or did the scope of work change that caused the cost to complete this phase exceed your budget?
So I'll start with the former, or the electrical was done ahead of time along with the demolition. Those costs were included in the 1.15 total project cost that was estimated. As far as the first part of your question, could you repeat that for me?
Yeah, so just to compare, your
pre-bid.
appropriation was 1.15. If you spent 152 on electrical and you're now getting a low bid of 113, the project is now closer to, it's $1,260,000. So you're slightly higher than what you estimated before. And is that a function of scope or just the pricing environment?
So that's a function mostly of the pricing environment.
Right, and I'll speak to your question, Leslie, about the rebid. What we've seen is if one were to go back and do a substantial redesign or something of that ilk, that's why you'd rebid. If you're just rebidding the same project, everybody's already seen the numbers. Frankly, nothing seems to be going down in price, at the moment, so it really wouldn't buy you very much. Unfortunately, Werner, we've had good history with them, so we think it's a good thing to move it all forward.
Thank you.
And another thing about Werner is they are local, right, in Coscob, so we do think that had some positives in regards to fuel costs and travel to the job site as to why they bid it when others were reluctant to.
Thanks.
Do you have any questions?
Yeah, just a general question. Thank you for walking through that bid process. That was very helpful. Can you just speak a little bit to what the actual project is are we renovating a kitchen? Are we moving, it looks like you're moving it from one part to the other. Are you buying new appliances? Like that $1 million is, it looks like it's about a third of it is materials, 2/3 of it is labor. So I'm assuming you're not replacing too many appliances, or what's actually going on? Yeah.
Sure, yes. So, good question.
Yeah.
This includes a brand-new kitchen on the ground floor. There's an existing kitchen on the first floor on the north side of the structure, and dining facility over there. This would move the kitchen to the ground floor to free up space for activities on the first floor in the next phase. The new kitchen would have a expanded prep serving area, be a much more functional kitchen than what's there now. It includes a brand-new slab, under slab utilities, full kitchen line, hood, dishwasher, cleaning area, full-fledged, run-of-the-mill commercial kitchen. Above that would be a new dedicated serving area. That would be housing most of your go-to items for whatever the seniors or whoever's using that cafe would go to get, the quick handouts. And then a dining area adjacent. And that would move all the functions to the southern portion of the building, which would make it closer to where the new handicap ramp was installed, more accessible.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. And then the, Werner Construction, I know this name is very familiar because I think they're also doing the the Central Middle, I think, emergency repairs as well, right? Is that the same firm?
I would have to presume, I don't really
I think
know
it
much
is.
about the schools.
The name's ringing a bell to me just because I've gone through.
done a lot of work.
Yeah, because I remember they were also like local and, easy to get to do especially emergency stuff. So, and I appreciate you discussing that we had 12 contractors showing up for the pre-bid. And I wanted to understand I didn't catch that, or understand that rather, the 30%, like you wanted contractors to have 30% in-house to have
Self-performing.
more skin in the game. What's that concept? And, do you feel,
That's something we've done over several years. It really helps the contractor to be more on-site, more involvement in the project, and you usually get a better outcome based on such.
Now, do you feel if
In
you
our
didn't,
experience.
if you didn't have that constraint, do you feel like you would have gotten more bids? I mean, I don't like to see one bid, that's my concern. Even if you
Yeah.
end up going
I mean,
with the
if one
local
goes
guy.
to two, I mean, I don't think that really makes a difference.
That wasn't you don't think that was?
I don't think that's the driving factor in why there was a reduced outcome. I think it was a surplus of other activities the other contractors were working towards. And then, like I know, they were also engaged in some other large projects that were taking some of their main attention away.
And then, just for my benefit, what's the difference between like the pre-bid process and the actual bidding? So when you say 12 contractors show up, I'm assuming you're not all getting in a room and like talking about the project. What does that mean to be in a pre-bid process?
That's exactly it.
Is that what it is?
Yep, so
Okay.
we set a time where all the contractors come to the site. We walk the site to make sure they're familiar with what's going on. It was very important to us in this case because it's such a historic building and it's an older building. We wanted them to see the space, know what they're getting into, go over the bid spec, go over the plans, go over the specifications, make sure everyone's on the same page and understands what's going forward, what's expected.
And then do they actually make a bid there, or that's just like a
No,
more
so-
like a review process?
So first we take them to the pre-bid, and then they go out and bid the project. They have like 2 weeks or something to put pricing together to submit for an actual bid.
And
This-
only
this is-
one of-
This is
yeah.
before any of that takes place, just so they have more information going into the bid.
And only one contractor actually submitted a bid.
Correct.
So-
So 12 showed up,
12 showed up, right?
and then we're then eligible to bid because the pre-bid was mandatory to submit a bid.
Got it. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay.
Laura?
I just have a question for Roland, and this is just an accounting question. So the account number is the Z fund, the project is bonded, so it's in a B fund, but the account number's the same? So,
It's in the Z fund, it's not bonded.
We asked the same thing, Laura.
because when I look at Open Capital, it identifies it as B, but it's,
This piece is not going to be bonded.
Right.
It's going to be funded with a gift, so the project will just be split, which happens
okay,
very often.
okay. So it's the same number, but portion of it is in the Z
Right,
fund.
one's in a B and one's in a Z.
Okay. I'm happy to make the motion if there's no other.
I just want, can I ask one quick? So do you, these are kitchen appliances and so forth, do you expect any supply issues, getting any of this equipment is there any issues like that with this particular project?
Absolutely, but we have already, no, thank you. Absolutely, in today's age, I think there's complications with getting everything. But we've already gone through the list of what's anticipated to be installed, and, procured more updated pricing, taken timeframes for delivery into account, and we're anticipating accordingly for our ordering of those appliances.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So I'll make a motion to appropriate the gift of $338,000 for the senior center renovation project.
I'll second.
So, well, really, I think we're appropriating the construction, right? Is that what we're doing? Not
Just
really
appropriating 338,000. The
Right.
source of the fund really is not part of the motion, I
Right.
don't believe.
So I'd just like to make one comment, if we can just have one little bit of discussion here. While Patricia Burns isn't here, she has had a vision for fundraising for the senior center and for executing this project. And while she's not here, she really should be commended because she's been able to carry through. And when there was this cost overrun, 100% of it's being covered by private funds. So, I think, well, Laurie Contadino has done a great job with the senior center too. But I think Patricia's had this long-time vision, and she moved from Nathaniel Witherall. And she's, I think she was a great chairman there, and I think this is part of executing what she's done. So I just wanted to make sure that we kind of we recognize that, and, and we recognize it in the minutes. So I'll take a vote on Laura's motion, seconded by Leslie. Those in favor? So that vote is 4-0-0. And do we think this is routine? Routine? Okay, and we're going to call this a routine transaction. So we never can tell whether our chairman will agree, but it seems, it seems like this is pretty special. Anyway, thank you very much, Amy and Luigi.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you all.
Okay, so now we put Roland on show here. And Roland is going to tell us or provide us with the economic conditions report, which starts out with some very good news, right, Roland?
It was that, somebody last month was saying things look bad, it's slowing up, but it's coming back. We had some big months, we had a big month in conveyance and in building permits. And you can see the relatively small impact, but you can see the impact on the interest rates. They're moving up ever so slightly, but it does show that it's going upwards. In terms of the other revenues,
Can we just stop here? Because I think, this needs some recognition. Our conveyance taxes, while slightly under last year, relative to any of the previous years, are almost double or triple at least. And so I think part of this includes this conveyance tax that I think, did we talk about last month a little bit? And but what we were a bit premature because this conveyance tax turned out to be 2 other properties and transferred as an equity transaction, which I think, it appeared since there were no property transfer records. And so we still have the opportunity for the one which we discussed last month. So, there's good news. Is that fair, Roland? I think we had in addition, we had another, but it was much smaller equity transfer.
and on the rest of the revenues, it's, if you look
And
at the,
yeah, before, Roland, do we have any idea why or what we have in building permits? As I look through here, I think this is a record month in the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, in the 6 years we're tracking here. This is a record month in building permits. I'm sorry?
You missed one number in fiscal '20. There was an 800,000 plus number.
Oh, we missed one. Sorry. Thank you, Leslie, for
Close to the
catching that.
record number.
But it's, okay. So, anyway, where did I miss it, Leslie?
So is February of
Oh, yes, I
fiscal
see,
20.
I see. So Roland, do we have any idea why our building permits are
I don't
peaked?
know if it was one big one, or I can ask the building department.
That would be helpful, and just email us or something, if you, or forward the email, that'd be great. Sorry, I just wanted, I mean, these are almost record numbers.
If you look at the taxes, you'll see it kind of unwrapped from last year. We were almost $28 million ahead in collections because we still had the grace period to pay the taxes last year. And now we're 11 million ahead of a year ago, which most of that is simply the higher tax revenues that we budgeted.
And that runs out in April, correct?
Yes.
So next month's report will show an equalized,
It should,
a
yeah, completely.
comparable number.
Yeah.
Okay.
But we still had some very positive trends here, or just at least opportunities in the month, right? As I look at the month in terms of collecting on some of the grants that we've had for various and sundry types of public works construction, right? That was pretty good.
We've been ahead on the bridges now for a few months. It hasn't changed. We have an extra $1 million there. We got 500 in sped that we didn't have last year, and $500,000 in summer school that we didn't have last year. So that makes up
So,
most of the
so it
$14
was
million.
really a pretty good, we hope that these are trends that continue, right, Roland?
Yep.
We also had substantial increases in rental of our town facilities, as I looked across the board. What we didn't have was very good membership cards for the beaches. What's happening there? I guess people are finding other things to do. The other, any questions on revenues? Comments on revenues? Oh, another comment that I had was the parking services. They seem to be doing much better too, and we've been concerned about them. Their permit are up, their parking meter collections are up substantially. So,
They indicated last month some of the permits was a timing issue of when they were getting things out and returning them.
but still, it's 23%, and parking meter collections, I mean, 23% overall for the fund. And so that's good news for a fund that we're looking at, you know, moving into a negative balance, fund balance this year, so.
The only other thing is, in Nathaniel Witherall, when this was done, we didn't have their March revenues. We just got them in about 2 hours ago. It's, March revenues were $2.7 million, which would bring the year-to-date up to $22.4 million.
Does the 2001 figure have March?
Yes, it does. Yes, so they're running at almost $1.6 million ahead of last year for the same time period.
So, you think they're gonna,
Right now, they're $1.3 million ahead of expenses. And that's without the town contribution.
And that's all of the expenses we typically attribute to them? So all the fringes?
Yep.
But not debt service?
Debt service
Oh,
as
debt
well.
service included.
so this is good news, right, Roland?
Yep.
And what about expenses? Roland?
Expenses, it's kind of the similar, what it has been. You know, we have the built-in additional $4.6 million of capital contribution to the Z fund, offset by $5 million of lower debt service. Where we have more spending is at the Board of Education, the special ed and the bus transportation. That seems to be a timing issue because when you look at this year compared to last year, the spending and the encumbrances are the same, except it's a matter of, I know the bus in particular is pretty lumpy in terms of the actual expenditures to them. So the place where we see some additional expending is in the ESSER funds, which have not been transferred out of the general fund yet.
So that'll make quite a difference, right, Roland?
Yep. And then the fire department, that's the retro payment that wasn't fully offset by the encumbrances.
So Roland, there's something the way these names printed out this month didn't really give us always the right information. We weren't sure what some of these departments are, because they'll just say center or department
Oh,
or
yeah.
something like that.
If I can ask a question just on the numbers, given that we're sitting here in April, getting tight to the end of the year, so fire, we know, will be coming in for an additional appropriation when the figures are finalized. Board of Education, I would just want to make sure that any department that you believe is getting close to their budgeted level, that they're alerted and know that time now is short to get the
The only
additional
one I know
funding.
is fire, which is probably going to come in for about $500,000.
500,000 now. Is that all overtime, or is that, what is that?
It's overtime.
Wow, that's quite a difference from,
Well, that would bring them up to what their actual spending was the last 2 years, in that $2.5 million range.
And, I mean, most of these departments are negative. Is there a timing difference in terms of the number of weeks in each payrolls?
No,
March
we're actually,
year-to-date, no?
but we are,
When I say negative, it's higher than last year. Granted, the budget,
the budget was almost,
higher,
I believe,
too.
almost $10 million higher than last year. And what you're seeing in some cases is still the cyber, those items that we moved from
capital operating.
operating into capital. You see that in Public Works and IT, both the Board of Ed and in town.
Yeah, so it's not in the base number. Yep. Maybe for future, like towards the end of the year in the last quarter, maybe we add a column in here for the budget as well, so that it's more obvious when we're comparing expectations versus actual
I
spending.
agree. As I went through here, I was wondering the same thing. I think maybe, would that work the next time, Roland, or would you just?
No, we can
I
add the
mean,
budget.
you'd have to put in the full year budget, because we don't do budget by month, which is always the issue of comparing where you really are year-to-date versus budget, but towards the end of the year, maybe the numbers get a little bit more relevant.
Well, I'll let Roland judge how
It could
he
be
presents it, but I think.
Could be confusing,
I
too.
think Roland should make that decision, but obviously take your advice. And, I mean, even though it may not be exactly accurate, I think doing a pro rata, something, whatever you think is appropriate, at least gives us a better feel than just putting the full year-end numbers and making us calculate every single item on here. Okay, so I think we're finished this. And we thank you, Roland, for keeping us well-informed, especially as we go to Budget Decision Day on April 19th. So now we're going to move to minutes. Do we want to approve them individually, or do we just want to approve them all with one motion? Okay, so Nisha, is that your motion?
Sure.
Okay, to approve the,
Approve, how many do we
why don't you just list them so that
Yep.
the
So
public
to-
knows?
Yep. Make a motion to approve the January 25th minutes for the fiscal 22-23 budget public hearing. Approve the minutes for the March 7th, Budget Decision Day 1, March 8th, Budget Decision Day 2, and the March 22nd special meeting of the Budget Committee.
Is there a second to Nisha? So Laura seconded. Those in favor? So with that, I think we're coming to the end of our meeting, and just make point that our next meeting is Tuesday, May 10th at 1 o'clock. Oh, I'm sorry,
Just
Leslie.
one question. We still have, there are other budget meetings that have not yet been approved, or was this the end?
No, we're still,
still have
we
more.
highlighted the ones people wanted to do first, and so we still have more to do.
Okay,
It's going to be busy.
okay.
If you think you can go on vacation, not so soon, Leslie. Okay, those in favor of, did we have a motion to adjourn? Laura moved,
I'll second.
Nisha seconded. Those in favor of the motion to adjourn at 1:32. So I thank you very much, and we look forward to a couple busy meetings, certainly one next week.